Routing allows you to display specific views of your application depending on the URL path. For example, if the URL path is localhost:4200/employee, then the results expected would be to display the employee's details in the screen. If the URL path is localhost:4200/department, then the result expected would be to display the department details in the screen. We can simply follow 5 steps. Step number 1. Open the app.module.ts file. 2. Add the following import statement. Import router module from @angular/router. The third step is to locate the @ngModule decorator section. Update the imports.routermodule.forRoot method with the list of path and component definition. Path refers to key that comes in the route URL. Component refers to the actual component corresponding to the route URL. The last step is to update your root component with router outlet. We will navigate to the My Routing App folder by saying cd space My Routing App. And let us create a new project by saying ng space new space routing application. The Angular CLI takes some time to create a new project routing application. Once the project is created, we should implement the routing in the project by following the steps we saw in the previous slide. The setup asks whether we have to implement Angular routing. Let us say no at this point in time. Let us navigate to the routing application folder by saying cd space routing application. Once we navigate to the folder, we will create a new component myCrisis by saying ng space generate space component space myCrisis. Once we execute this CLI command, we will get 4 files created. myCrisis component.html file, myCrisis component.spec.ts file, myCrisis component.ts file, myCrisis component.css file. Once we create the myCrisis component, we will create the myHeroes component by saying ng space generate space component space myHeroes. The CLI will generate 4 files similar to myCrisis component. Let us now navigate in the Explorer window in order to investigate the components created. I can see myCrisis works mentioned in the myCrisis.component.html file. Similarly, under myHeroes folder, I can see myHeroes works mentioned in the myHeroes.component.html file. Let us now start the application by saying npm space start in the terminal window, which will in turn trigger the ngserve command. Let us now edit the app.component.html file, which is our root component. I go back to the app.module.ts file. At line number 7, I say import router module from @angular/router. I also import the routes array from the angular/router. At line number 9, I say const space myRoute, which will be of type routes. This basically carries all the path keys and component values that are used for my routing application. At line number 10, I create a JSON property path and mention the key as myCrisis and the corresponding component as myCrisis component. Basically, in the route, when I have the myCrisis as key, following localhost 4200, I should display the myCrisis component. If I have myHeroes as a key in the URL following the localhost 4200, I say the code to show myHeroes component. Now I go back to the imports property. At line number 22, I say router module.forRoot and pass the myRoutes object as an input parameter. Once the code gets compiled successfully in the terminal window, I go back to the app.component.html file and add the router outlet selector. The router outlet selector shows the root component where the routing has to be implemented. If I say myHero, I can see myHeroes works displayed in the browser. Similarly, if I say myCrisis, I can see myCrisis works displayed in the browser window. Root component is getting displayed otherwise. A well-functioning application should gracefully handle when users attempt to navigate to a part of your application that does not exist. To add this functionality to your application, you set up a wildcard route. The Angular router selects this route anytime the requested URL does not match the router paths. Whenever the user tries to visit a page that does not exist or mention the key which does not exist in the route's definition, we should gracefully handle that situation by using wildcard routes concept in Angular. Let us now generate a component by saying ng space generate space component space page not found. We can now see the page not found component got created. Let us now go to the page not found component.html file. Under the page not found folder, I can see page not found works mentioned in the HTML file. So whenever this component is rendered, page not found works will be displayed in the browser window. Let us now make the changes to the myRoutes variable. At line number 13, I add path colon my app comma component colon app component. So whenever the users mention my app as a key after localhost 4200, app component will be rendered. At line number 14, I say path colon star star comma component colon page not found component. Star star refers to any other value that user mentioned after localhost 4200. Once the code compiles successfully, let us navigate to the localhost 4200. So we can see page not found is working fine. Whenever we say localhost 4200/my app, I can see the root component getting displayed. If I say localhost 4200/myCrisis, myCrisis works is getting displayed. If I say localhost 4200/myHeroes, I can see myHeroes works getting displayed. If I say localhost 4200/anything, I can see page not found is getting displayed. Setting up redirects. In Angular, whenever the user does not mention any keys after the actual URL, we can set up redirects and navigate to a default component. To set up a redirect, configure a route with the path you want to redirect from, the component you want to redirect to, and a path match value that tells the router how to match the URL. Let us now edit the app.modules.ts file. At line number 15. We say path colon empty string comma redirect to colon slash my app comma, path match, colon, full. So whenever we get an empty string after localhost colon 4200, we then redirect to the my app. Once the code gets compiled successfully, let us go back to the browser and say localhost 4200/mycrisis. We can see the mycrisisworks is getting displayed. Once we say localhost 4200/myheroes, we can see myheroesworks is getting displayed. Once I say localhost 4200 and mention nothing after the slash, it will trigger the redirect and the root component is getting displayed. Once I say localhost 4200/anything or localhost 4200/QQ, page not found is getting displayed because of the wildcard setup.